Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Catholic Education Foundation podcast number 49. This podcast will feature John Lechleiter, the retired president, chief executive officer, and chairman of Indianapolis-based Eli Lilly and Company, along with Catholic Education Foundation president, Rich Lechleiter. All right, gentlemen, I don't know if I can handle or if I have enough bandwidth for two Lechleiters here on the show, but we're going to give this thing a shot. John, great having you on the show. Thank you for making the trip down from Indianapolis this morning.
Thanks, Teague. Pleasure.
Really appreciate that. John, in your business career, you were fortunate to lead what is now the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. But before we get to that, let's talk about growing up here in Louisville. Now, you are the oldest of, is it 9, Rich? Is that correct?
At least.
At least.
9.
So you're the oldest of the Lechleiter clan.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So how was it growing up here in Louisville?
Well, I have wonderful memories of growing up in Louisville. We lived in Audubon Park. We all went to St. Stephen Martyr grade school, and still there, and St. Xavier High School. There, I had 4 brothers and 4 sisters, so I guess you could say I was a tiebreaker at the top.
Now, obviously, I guess Rich kind of followed in your footsteps to when you went through St. Stephen, then to St. X. What was the proximity, or why choose St. X at that time?
Well, our father went to St. X back when it was downtown, and I don't really remember there being any question about where we'd go to school. It was walking distance, so
Gotcha.
That made it even more convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Well, and then in 1971 was the year you graduated from St. Xavier. It looks like you were a National Merit finalist. Okay. So was it that the time that you became interested in science, or was it sweet before then?
My interest in science, I guess, maybe went back earlier than high school, but I think it really peaked, when I was at St. X. I had a Brother Julius Mahoney, great chemistry teacher, Brother John Roth, physics, science fair program was big at the time, and I was in the science fair all 4 years, and there were regional science fairs. So, yeah, that interest, I think you could say, was nurtured, at St. X. So it was pretty clear when I headed off to college I wanted to major in some branch of science.
And I don't want to get too far away from this, Rich, but I want to mention St. Stephen Martyr because obviously it's still a great school in our archdiocese here. Pretty amazing what our Catholic schools do to get these kids ready for the future and beyond.
Yeah, listen, for us as a family, and again, all 9 of us went to St. Stephen Martyr, 1st grade through 8th. It made a huge difference on every one of us in our lives. It was a great foundation, a great start. And from there, we went on. The boys went to X. Sisters went to Sacred Heart. We were very well prepared going into high school. And even to this day, St. Stephen Martyr is a great product. In fact, at the foundation, we're probably helping, I think it's over half the kids in the school today. So we're making a huge investment in that community, and we're proud to do it.
Was it a stretch for your parents to send you guys to Catholic schools? Was it a sacrifice?
Yes and no. I mean, back in the late 60s when we all started school, tuition was incredibly low because we had the Dominican sisters at St. Stephen's, Varian Brothers at St. X. Now, as numbers declined in both those orders over time, tuition went up rather sharply because you had more lay people teaching, and of course it's gone up considerably since then. I think the first year I was at St. X, I was trying to recall the number the other day, but I think full year tuition at St. X was somewhere between $250 and $300.
Yeah, a little bit different these days.
Yeah.
I mean, Rich, that's the obviously with the foundation, that's the key, right? Is getting kids into Catholic education, and 9 kids seems like that was probably a struggle at some point, or for your parents, I would think.
Yeah, I think to John's point, when the college journey started for all of us, it obviously got a lot more expensive. We're all 9 of us are God bless to be college graduates, and that to me was always the miracle, how they ever did the college thing with 2 or 3 kids in college at the same time.
Oh, I know.
So
it's kind of like having a couple kids in high school right now at the same time.
So
that's
I
a
think
stretch.
That was a big struggle late in the game.
So, John, you mentioned the Xavier Brothers, and there was a bunch of them on campus when you were there teaching in the classroom. Who are some that stood out to you? Do you still remember some of the names?
Well, certainly the two science teachers, Brother Julius Mahoney, Brother John Roth. My French, our French teacher is at that time Brother Robert, later Richard Angarola. I remember he took a group of us on a summer trip to France, and we're going to go, of course, study French, and the outfit we went with went bankrupt at the time we were over there.
Man.
By all credit to him, he got us home safely somehow. Wow. But yeah, we were all fond of Frere Robert.
Okay,
yeah.
That sounds like a cool story.
Yeah.
Listen, this has become a theme on this show here as of late, but can you tell us how much your St. X experience has impacted your life?
Oh, tremendously. I think the discipline at the school, the focus on academic excellence, the impact and influence of the brothers, the religious order there, which certainly was maintained during the whole time I was there. The focus on religion and religious education, the retreat program was outstanding. So a tremendous impact.
I always say my friends who chose Xavier University chose it because they already knew how to spell Xavier. But both of you guys went on to Xavier University in Cincinnati. John, you earned a full merit scholarship and an undergraduate degree from there with honors in chemistry, it looks like. During your college years, what were you thinking in terms of a career path?
You know, it's interesting, Teague. I can't say I entered college with a clear idea of what my career path would be, and I tell young people to this day, don't panic, if that's the case. You find your way as I found my way. I think early on maybe pre-med was on my mind, and that didn't last long.
Right.
In the course of my college time, I did 2 summer internships, one at Oak Ridge Labs in Tennessee, the other one at University of Minnesota. Both those experiences had a role in terms of crystallizing my thinking about what I wanted to do, and it was, headed off in the direction of science without knowing, where
Sure.
I would necessarily end up.
Yeah. Rich, you had pretty much the same educational journey, right? St. Stephen's, St. X, Xavier University. It's pretty much the same path, right?
Not a bad gig following John. Let's put it that way. Not a bad gig.
I'd say so.
Yeah, our father was a Xavier graduate and a St. X grad. 4 of us went to Xavier, which was a fantastic education, a Jesuit school. Mm-hmm. And none of us would ever say anything other than what a great experience that was. And again, hats off to so many people that made my journey there and John's journey so fantastic. And obviously hats off to our parents who were able to, we all got out of college debt-free. And in this day and age, that's a rarity, right?
That is a rarity.
Great gift, a really great gift from our mom and dad, for sure.
So, John, this is kind of, we ask this to all of our guests, and it's not an easy question to answer, but why is Catholic education so important?
Well, I happen to believe that an important part of education for us as Catholics is to be educated in our faith. And I think that's the added bonus, as it were, of Catholic education. It's about educating the whole person in my mind. Catholic education tends to be value-focused and value-based. I look at the world today and students coming into that world, how complex it is, how difficult it can be to navigate. And I think Catholic education sort of points one toward a North Star, as it were. Plus, it turns out Catholic schools offer a pretty darn good education overall anyway.
Yes, they do. There's no doubt about that. All right, so after graduating from Xavier University in 1975, you went on to earn your doctorate degree in organic chemistry from Harvard University. I guess Xavier wasn't hard enough for you, so you found something a little more challenging. How did you end up at Harvard?
Well, I knew I wanted to go to graduate school in chemistry. This was the summer after I interned at University of Minnesota. In fact, I was headed there. I was my senior year. I was taking a graduate level class. It was a night class taught by a fellow who worked at Procter & Gamble during the day, who'd gotten his PhD in organic chemistry at Harvard, and he put his arm around me one night after class and said, "What are you doing next year?" And I said, "I'm going to go back to University of Minnesota, get my PhD." And he said, "You need to go to Harvard." And I said, well, you think I get in? You'll get in. And I mean, it was that nudge, that guidance that got me there. Yeah.
The Harvard experience had to have been something else. I mean, did you feel? I always wonder when someone goes to Harvard, is it just kind of the best of the best? I mean, did you feel like you were surrounded with just unbelievably intelligent people all the time?
You know, the answer is yes. Okay, we had I had a wonderful experience at Harvard. I was a little intimidated going in.
Okay.
I mean, I was with young men and women who had gotten their degrees at Stanford and Princeton, and I thought, boy, am I cut out to do this? Am I going to make it? And shortly after getting there, I figured out and saw that, yeah, I can do this. I can compete with these folks, and I'm not in the wrong place. And so, of course, I attribute my earlier education to that.
Awesome. So in 1976, you and Sarah were married while you were still studying at Harvard. How crazy is that?
Well, we got married in June of '76 after I'd completed a year there. Well, we had a blast in Boston. The month after we were married, we were with a couple 100,000 of our best friends and listening to Arthur Fiedler, celebrate the 200th anniversary of the country there at the Esplanade. So we had a great time. We'd have two pennies to rub together, but I don't think we were ever happier.
That's part of it. So you decided to enter the pharmaceutical industry. Why in particular did you pick pharmaceutical? And then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, why Lilly, but why the pharmaceutical industry?
Coming out of a PhD program like that, you sort of had two choices. One was to go into academia to become an assistant professor somewhere. If you weren't going to do that, and I decided early on I didn't want to do that, the best kind of job was in the pharmaceutical industry, the most challenges, I think many of the greatest rewards. So, many of my classmates were looking at those types of jobs.
Now, John, when you hear that, these days, when I hear somebody say that, it typically means they're going to be some sort of sales rep, right? They're going to go and try to sell whatever it may be to doctors and hospitals. But you went a different route, it seems like. And why did you pick Lilly?
Well, I knew I'd go into chemistry research at Lilly, working in the lab. I picked Lilly for two reasons. One, when I interviewed there, I liked the people that I met, and it turns out that was, it turned out that was something very important. Sure. And I wanted to get back to the Midwest, big family and Midwestern roots, and so it all kind of came together, coalesced for me around Lilly.
A successful career that ran 37 years. Some of the highlights of your journey at Lilly, please.
Well, when I joined in 1979, I started off in the lab. I had the opportunity to move into a management role in 1982. Shortly after that, I took an overseas assignment at a Lilly research lab in the UK, so our family lived there for 3 years. When I returned, I had jobs of, I guess you could say, of increasing responsibility, mainly focused on new drug development. Toward the early part of the 00s, I took on some roles that gave me responsibility for our sales and marketing functions, and became chief operating officer in 05, and then CEO in 08.
Was CEO ever on your mind when you started? Was that ever like something you could have dreamed up? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
No, not almost right up to the end. It wasn't a destination that I sought. I thought I'd done pretty well getting to certain levels already in the company. I thought I was able to make an impact and having an impact. So no, that kind of crept up on me.
When you say new drugs, and you talked about research, and obviously you were in the lab quite a bit, did you ever have any sort of influence or any part of creating something that's been impactful?
Well, I think along the way, of course, it takes a village, to bring a new medicine to market. There were several products that I can look back and say, I think I had a hand in that by, making this decision or that decision. But it really is the work product of thousands of people, and can take 12 to 15 years. Right. So you're always happy when you get that FDA approval and can launch it.
FDA approval, you've got my mind swirling. I'd love to ask you some of these some questions about COVID and how all that happened, and if all that went the right way. But we'll see if we have time there. During your 8-year tenure as CEO, Some say it was the most challenging in the company's 140-year history. I know there was a lot of patent and a lot of things you had to navigate in that world. How would you describe it, and what did you do to help set the direction of the company that stands today?
The challenge we faced starting shortly after 2008 was we lost the patent exclusivity for basically our 4 largest products. We saw this coming. In one case...
Did it just run out?
They run out.
Yeah.
There's a patent expiration date, and of course, generics enter the market quite quickly after that, and your sales, your revenue falls. We had the added problem of having some of our molecules that are future drugs that were in development fail. So what we thought were going to be new drugs that would sort of enter our pipeline or come out of our pipeline to make up for the patents ended up not working. So we had to replenish the pipeline all the while we were losing revenue. I think in terms of what we ended up doing, and there were many saying, you need to cut costs substantially, you need to merge, you need to buy somebody, you need to spin off a division. Instead, we chose to invest more in research.
Okay.
And I think the product of that is evident today. It wasn't so evident then, and yet we thought that's the heritage of the company. That's what's gotten us where we are now, where the company is now, and that was the right direction, and that's what we did.
That's fantastic. So, listen, and this question's for both of you guys, because Rich, you were obviously head of a large organization as well. When people set their sights on becoming a CEO, a CFO, whatever it may be, on a company, let alone the size of Lilly or Humana, or again, people don't realize the pressure that comes with a job like that, and the amount of people that are counting on you to make the right decisions, right? How did you manage with the 24/7 pressure?
Well, I'll let Rich answer for himself, but I think I managed with prayer and the grace of God first and foremost. I mean, the pressure's real. I had a lot of support, from my wife and friends and family, and I think you realize, or you have to realize, that you're not going this alone. You have a lot of committed people. You have a framework that you're drawing on of expertise that ultimately it's not on your shoulders.
Right.
It's about you enabling those folks to do what they do best and trusting them and counting on them to do that.
That's a great answer. Rich, how would you answer that question?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't think I was ever going to be the CFO of a public company until it's just sort of happened when I was in my early 40s. So that was, and when it happened, I was 42 years old or something. And when it happened, I thought, oh yeah, I can do this. I mean, I've been a treasurer, a controller, a chief accounting officer, and all these other things along the way for 3 different companies. Yeah, I got this. Little did I know how little I had.
Right.
And it was sort of right off the bat sort of daunting, because when you're in a role like I was before, there's somebody above you, and that somebody takes most of the heat.
Sure.
You really don't take that much heat.
Right.
And then when you're in the hot seat, guess what?
You get all the blame.
You get it. So that part, I'd say the first couple years was difficult for me, and I adjusted. Look, thank God for my family, for my faith. The 24/7 part of it's real. I didn't think that was real when I got in. It is. Just can't shake it. And, John was the CEO for 8 years, which is a pretty long time at a company that size. I was a CFO for 12. That was way too long.
Right. Right.
So you got to be up for it, and you got to. Look, I had the best team ever. I mean, I put together a fantastic team of people. I had 8 direct reports, and to a man or a woman, they were the best, and it made my life so much better.
And John alluded that too. I'm always curious, though, when you have shareholders that count on dividends and count on this money coming in, and it's part of, hey man, it might be part of what they need on a to get through on a monthly budget. That's a lot of pressure, right? I mean, that's because it's directly on your shoulders at that point.
Yeah, it's hard. Look, it's hard in any company. It's hard to shake the quarterly earnings guidance pressure.
That's right.
So while you're working long term to grow a company over years and decades, particularly in John's case, where the tail is so much longer, you're only as good as you were the last 90 days in a lot of cases, and that pressure kind of adds to the whole 24/7 thingy, I think.
John, any thoughts there? I mean, because there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are very interested in business development and how to grow their career and what the right move is in business. What advice do you give someone who would love to be in one of those seats one of these days?
Well, I think as difficult as it can be, you've got to keep a long-term focus. And, there's ups and downs in the short term for any business. But I think particularly the pharmaceutical industry, where it takes 10 to 15 years to go from the lab to the market, you've got to keep that long-term focus. And sometimes it's hard to convince, shareholders of that. We, during the difficult time that we endured, we made a public commitment to maintain our dividend at least its current level. Now, at that point, even some did not believe we'd be able to do that. We did. Our share price touched $28 at one point. Today, it's over $1,000.
Wow!
So, you can imagine we had some pressure on that end. But I think we stayed the course. We were clear about what we intended to do, and we did it.
It's fantastic. So, in 2016, you retired from Lilly. Proudest moment in your journey?
Well, there were a number of proud moments. I think the day I introduced my successor may be one of them. He's done a terrific job. But no, I think when I look back, two things really. One, the role that I played in a number of different the launch of a number of different products and the development of those products. And then I think helping Lilly navigate through this tough period.
Yeah.
Those would be the two.
So you and Sarah have been married for nearly 50 years, which is insane. I'm sure she's played a huge role in your success.
She's played a huge role. She's never put her nose into our business. On occasion, I'll talk to her about certain things. And I remember at one point, during this difficult period, in 1 week, we had a court ruling invalidating the patent on one of our products, and we lost. We had bad news on the phase 3 or late stage clinical trials for one of our Alzheimer's drugs. There was a third thing, and I mean, we were just beaten up. And I remember one Saturday morning sitting there, crying in my milk, and Sarah said, "Well, if you think there's a better story to tell it." And so this was back when newspapers were still, printed.
Yep.
And we took out I sat there and wrote out on my BlackBerry a full storyline. We put in the local newspaper, the local African-American newspaper, the local business journal, basically saying, you've heard a lot of stuff about the company lately, but let me tell you my side of the story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that changed anything, but sure made me feel better. And I wouldn't have done it without her advice.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a cool story. Okay, so you and Sarah have 3 children and 9 grandchildren. Tell us what you can about them.
Well, how long do you want me to go?
Yeah, you start talking about grandkids, it can get a little lengthy.
We have 3, and they each have 3, and the 9 of them range in age from 7 to 12.
Wow!
So they have a blast when they get together, and I know that won't last forever as they grow older and all of that. But we're blessed, and we couldn't be happier.
Are most of them in Catholic schools?
Some are, and some aren't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just kind of depending on where they live and everything. Yeah, that makes sense. So your record of community service is just impressive as your resume at Lilly, and Sarah as well. And actually, that's interesting, Rick. And every time that we always put up the names of our sponsors, obviously it's John and Sarah. I mean, it's always it's synonymous, right? John, what are some of the causes that the two of you have supported over your time together?
Well, Teague, I think it's interesting. I think early on we supported a number of different causes across the spectrum: United Way, the arts, medical-related things, education. But as we've gone on in time, I think we've tended to focus on education. And I say that because we look at all the problems we face in this country, homelessness, food insecurity, poverty. These are very difficult problems to tackle. You
Sure.
can't wave a magic wand and expect any one of those is going to get solved tomorrow. But I find myself saying what we can do is give a 6 or 7-year-old a chance to have a life that puts him or her on a different track, that ensures they get a job, that they're able to build households, have stable families, have a future, earn a decent income. And that's why I think we're kind of coalescing on education. It's why we support CEF, for example.
That's fantastic. And listen, Rich, like I just mentioned, I mean, their names on pretty much everything that we put out there is they're a huge supporter. I know that you're grateful, particularly to John and Sarah, for their support of the Catholic Education Foundation.
Hugely so. We're a 30-year-old organization. John and Sarah are the largest benefactors of this organization in our history. And that says a lot because there are people like David and Betty Jones, Dan Ulmer and his family, Bernie Dahlem, Charlie Dahlem, and the Dahlem family. I could go on with some Gene Frazier and so on. There's been a lot of folks that have really dug in our mission and really support us in a very significant way. But John and Sarah, particularly around our endowment, our efforts to build our endowment and our future, have been nothing but enormous in terms of making us a sustainable organization for a long time.
Rich, John may know the number of this, but the number of lives that he and Sarah have just impacted alone is incredible.
Yeah, look, I tell donors this all the time. If I ask somebody for $25,000, they say, well, what good's that? What's that do for me? And the answer is that investment will support about 22 kids in a Catholic school, in a Catholic elementary school. Guess what? That's a full classroom of kids. So that investment, $25,000, produces a different future for a whole classroom full of kids. That ROI is off the charts.
It is off the charts. That's unbelievable. Well, John, obviously, with your work with the foundation, what advice would you give to a young family just starting out who's considering Catholic education for their children?
Well, the first thing I'd say is you get one shot at this.
That's a great point.
You don't get to go through 2 or 3 times till you get it right. The second thing I would say is this is always, for 99% of families who have to make that decision, it's going to entail some sacrifice. Okay, I would then say, look, we all need to look at our own lives. In our case, we look back, Rich and I look back and say, we know what Catholic education did for us. Other people may say, I didn't have the opportunity for a Catholic education, but I understand what that can do for my son or my daughter, okay?
Right.
So, and then, finally, in Louisville, you have a support mechanism. You have a Catholic Education Foundation with a slogan that's more than a slogan. It's been what they've lived by. The answer is yes.
That's
you
right.
have someone prepared to help. And then I think you got to consider the upside, the quality of the education, the values-based focus that I talked about before. It's important.
More than a slogan. I like that, Rich. He's right.
It's a mandate.
He's right. I mean, he's dead on with that. John, I'd be amiss not to mention that Lilly recently became the world's first pharmaceutical company to hit the market value of $1 trillion, which is unbelievable. Given the immense challenges that you faced during your time as CEO and the moves that you made to change the company's trajectory, how good does that make you feel?
Makes me feel real good.
I bet.
But I think that no company in a sober moment sits back and says our goal is to be this large or that large. I think in Lilly's case, the goal has always been through the work that we do, how can we help people who are ill? How can we help people stay healthy? How can we help people have better lives? And as I said earlier, you do that through research.
That's right.
And what thrills me more is to see the enormous commitment that Lilly continues to make to R&D.
That's fantastic. Rich, I'd say you'd had a pretty good role model here.
Listen, I've been riding those coattails for 67 years. I'm not going to stop.
That's not true.
That's fantastic. John, thank you for sharing your story with us. Please accept our deep thanks for what you and Sarah have done for the foundation and Catholic education in your hometown of Louisville. And Rich, as every Catholic school family in need now knows, at the Catholic Education Foundation,
The answer is yes.
John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, T. My pleasure.
Thank you, John. Much appreciated.